Yeah. So first things first, uh, digital cover. Just in case if you want to read about what digital coverage is, you can read that. Then Subhadra is basically a scheme which is being launched by the Honorable Prime Minister in the state of Odisha. So you can read about that, and it is going to benefit 1 crore women in rural women, I guess, in Odisha, and beneficiaries will get 10,000 rupees annually in two installments and 50,000 rupees across 5 years. Now this is another issue, folks, that we have been reading about in the newspapers, because there have been a lot of these women-centric schemes that have come across different states. You have Ladli Behan scheme, and then you have other schemes whereby you are directly putting money into the accounts of women and through DBT. And what we have seen is that it gives a lot of empowerment to women, because it is, if you remember the article that we did in the Indian Express, I think on the 13th, which talks about that this is one of the major beneficiaries. Women are the one of the major beneficiaries, and because of this electoral benefits that they are getting, they get a lot of financial agency, and they can plan their entire household expenditure in a in a much better manner. This is a very small amount, but some of these schemes in different states are quite significant, and that has also led to good electoral outcomes for those particular states. So you can read about this. Then will resign as CM after 2 days, going for Agni Pariksha Kejriwal. So you must have been following what is happening on the what happened on the weekend. The Supremo of Aam Aadmi Party, Arvind Kejriwal, was released, and we've been reading about it. What the political news is not important for us. What is important for us is the Prevention of Money Laundering Act and Section 45 of Money Laundering Act, and how the Supreme Court has asserted time and again that bail has to be the rule and jail time has to be an exception. And under that, whether it's PMLA cases or any other cases, the Supreme Court has given a wide kind of interpretation to the article 21 and 22 of the Constitution, as against the rule of incarceration. So this is something that you need to be aware about, rather than all this political gimmick what is happening. Then one nation, one poll in this term. Coalition won't stall reform. So you should also be aware about what. This was also something that was as one of the targets of the NDA government. And why is it a target is because of the fact that we are continuously in election mode. Now if you see, the country right now, Maharashtra and Haryana and now Jammu and Kashmir are going for electoral polls. So what happens is, because of elections, and you will often see that the Prime Minister is the star campaigner in almost all the state elections. So the general law and order and the general developmental work of the state suffer, and therefore it is always ideal that if you want to have elections, let's have it in one go. But at the same point of time, there are negative sides to it. Can the election in the central impact the results in the state elections as well? This is something that we need to see, and we need to probably think about before going for one nation, one poll. Now, then comes let's move to, yes, restoring the balance. Now, restoring the balance. Now, in this particular article, the government has basically lifted the bans on the export of basmati rice and onions. So there were curbs which were there on basmati rice exports and onion exports, and there was minimum floor price below which they cannot be shipped out. Now think of whenever the government is going to have a minimum price of exports, what is it trying to do? It is basically trying to disallow for any kind of exports, or remove the incentive of exports from the country. Now when will when will the government want to disincentivize exporters from exporting rice or onions? When the domestic production is low. Now what has happened is, because of the fact that you have had a bumper rainfall across the nation, and therefore we are expecting that the production will be high, and therefore what we are saying is that we are going to improve, we are going to allow for exports of onions and export of basmati rice. Now apart from that, what also needs to be understood is, I've already always told you that every economic decision has a mirror political reflection into it. Now similarly, you have to see that the elections of Maharashtra, elections of Haryana are coming, and therefore you want to woo the farmers of these regions which basically produce onions and basmati rice, and therefore to do that they're basically the government is basically giving them an incentive that, see, we are all for farmers. But traditionally, if you see India's agricultural policy, and this has been a major problem, India's agricultural policy is extremely pro consumer and anti farmer. The moment that we see that the inflation is high, what we do is we curb on all exports and stock holdings. So the moment that we see that food inflation is high, what we will do is we will not allow farmers to and traders to export the commodity, and we will also have some kind of stock holding limits, that this is the maximum amount that you can hold. And whenever the prices are low, then we say that, okay, now you can export the commodities. So this is one of the major problems. If you see the last paragraph, in the Modi government's farm trade policy in the last 2 years has been more excessively pro consumers, with exports and private stock holdings as imposed alongside liberal imports. The moment that you have any kind of inflationary pressure. So this basically is not justification. You want your economy to have an agricultural policy, to have some kind of stability, and apart from that, what has also happened is that the government has increased the taxes and increased the custom duties on other products. For example, they've put a huge amount of import duty on soybean, palm oil and sunflower oil from 5% to 27.5%. And it is because of the fact that the imports were increasing in this particular area, and therefore we have increased the rates. But for any particular policy rate to increase from 5.5% to 27%, and from 13% to 35%, see the kind of volatility that brings into the economy. So think of let's take the example of income tax, suppose, or say GST. Suppose you were paying a 5% GST on some particular product, and next day you were said that no, the GST will be 30%. So see the kind of uncertainty that brings to the market with respect to that. And same is the case with agrarian policies, that we have too much of knee-jerk reaction happening in the agrarian policy, and that needs to change. Then evading questions. Now this is an excellent article, especially for people with economics background, and for others as well. Now what has happened is that the center recently had disbanded this 14 member standing committee on statistics, SCOCOS. Now the standing committee on statistics was formed in December of 2019, and later expanded in July of 2023. And the work of basically this committee was to oversee all statistical surveys which MOSPI does, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Now this particular ministry is extremely important because of the fact that all our economic data has to be vetted. All these surveys that we do have to be vetted, whether it's the census, or it's the consumption data, or the household data, unemployment data. All these are important parameters to basically have a have an eyeball on what is the national economy like, what is the health of the economy like. Now a number of these members had basically all these committee members led by chief statistician Pranab Sen basically had reported in the last few months that they were unhappy with the government's decision of not conducting the census. Now the census was supposed to happen in 2021. In fact, it was supposed to happen in 2020, and the results were to be given by 2021-2022. But now it's 2024, and now there's no sign of the survey yet. And even if we do the survey now, the results will come in 2025-26. And the last survey that was done was in 2011-12. So we do not know, and all these sample surveys that we do, so once we do the census, we kind of have a check on how good our sample surveys are. So because of the fact that we have too dated census data, we are not able to get reliable estimates out of our sample data. And this is why we have two varied numbers that are coming, and our all our economic parameters are becoming unreliable. So whether it's consumption data or inflation data or poverty levels, there's a lot of debate on economic numbers. In fact, some of these debates have also come from the Prime Minister's Advisory Council. Then a number of people have also questioned India's GDP numbers, including previous chief economic advisors. And then you have the periodic labor force survey, which paints a different picture as compared to the CMIE survey, which paints a different picture. So all of this basically has put India's statistical framework into question. And this is something which is unbecoming of a country which plans to be a developed country by 2047. So this needs to be resolved. Then the next article again is an important article from the point of view of economics. Now why is it important is that you might have heard about that what the government does is that for the power sector. Now suppose if I have to if I have to run a solar plant, suppose Delhi needs a solar plant. So what does the Delhi government do? Delhi government comes up with this auction. Now it comes up with this auction of solar. Suppose it's a solar renewable energy plant that I want of some megawatt. Now what I will do is I will come up with an auction, and in the auction, as an auctioneer, what I need to do is I need to auction that what is the price at which I'm going to sell my power. So it's basically rupees per kilowatt. This is what is being targeted. Just like if you're bidding for a house, you will say like X crores, I want to buy this house, and if you win the bid, then you get the house on the payment of those dues. Now similarly, when you have to bid for these renewable energy projects, what you need to do is you need to given all your whatever technology you have, whatever the cost that you have to calculate all these costs. You have to calculate that till what time is this period. So if it's a contract for 5 years, then what am I going to earn, how much I'm going to sell. So all these calculations you need to do, and once you have done all these calculations, you bid a particular price. Now because of rapidly changing technology in renewable energy, and the fact that you have competitive bidding, that the price level for say the tariff levels for solar power had reduced from somewhere around 15 rupees per kilowatt in 2010 to somewhere around 2 rupees 80 paisa per kilowatt in 2018. And we have also seen a lot of capacity being added in the wind sector, in the solar sector, as well as in the storage sector, because of the fact that if you have renewable energy, one of the major problems with renewable energy is that suppose it's night time. Now how do you store energy? There's no sunlight now. So this storage capacity has also increased in terms of batteries and how to store this power so that you can have I mean the these I mean even in the night you can store power and then distribute this power throughout the day. Now all of this basically has happened because of the fact that all this renewable energy, in this renewable energy you have short gestation period. A coal power plant might need 5 to 7 years for coming into action, but say a solar power plant might need only might only need 1 year. So similarly you have absence of fuel related risks, because again if it's coal then you need coal based thermal power, then you need access to coal as well and other things. Then apart from that you need batteries and storage, and all these other problems are there. Now what has happened is that some states have now what they have done is they have started to merge their renewable energy requirement with the non renewable energy requirement. For example, it talks about a particular state which says that coal and solar power are you have to make a composite bid. So if I am a player which is entering this particular state, I need to give it both solar power as well as coal power, and the costs for providing that could be huge. For example, I mean the investment would require somewhere around 28 crore, 100 crore rupees to 52,000 crore rupees, depending on the size of power that I want. So basically what you are doing is that if any particular person is going to invest so much into the business, the economies of scale are not going to come, and only a few people will be able to bid, and therefore that innovation that is supposed to happen will not happen. So basically you're closing the doors on innovation if you're going for this composite kind of bids rather than individual bids for of different renewable energy and different from raw renewable energy. And this is what this article is talking about. This is a major development that is happening in the power sector, something that you should be aware about, and something that you should also be concerned about, that this is something that will discourage competition, discourage innovation in the in the power sector in the coming times. Then the next article is giving farms their due. Now, this again article starts with the fact that despite the fact that this government did not come with huge majority, but still in the 100 days agenda it had agriculture as one of the major forays that it wants to have development in. And although there was not much in the union budget, because again from 6,000 rupees to be given under PM Kisan, we were expecting around 8,000 rupees per household, but that was not increased. But apart from that, there have been a number of developments that the government has done, and we have read about this, and I've asked all of you I've asked all of you to keep that article from the explained page on DPIs in agriculture with you, because that is going to be a major change in the agriculture. And this article also talks about that one of the major changes that came were the 7 schemes related to digitalization of agriculture, to horticulture and nutrition and profitability, livestock and all other Kisan Vigyan Kendras. So we have been talking about all of them in the last few days, but one of the major plans is with respect to digitalization of agriculture, because you need to know between the owner, operator and the tenant. So because right now the official figure for tenancy is around 17%, but the unofficial figure is around 30%, because we have a lot of oral tenancy as well. For example, I am not having any agreement with you, but you are going to till my farm, so that's an oral agreement. Now and the borrowing cost for tenant farmers is around 24 to 36%, and therefore they will not invest in land and they will not invest in productivity if they are paying so much of interest. So we need actual data to see that who is the tenant, who is the actual farmer, how can we improve the services for how can we improve the access of finance for these tenant farmers, And then what is also important is we have to go beyond identifying farmers. We need to know what they are growing, why they are growing, what kind of fertilizers they are using, what kind of soils they have, whether they are getting subsidies or not. So once we get that big data about India's farm, we can then change India's policy, and we can develop this common agri stack. Remember this term agri stack. We are talking about this digi stack in number of areas. For example, DPIs, we talk about these digi stacks. Write a note on this agri stack, and then based on that we can then develop our policies. So it will be a data based policy that we are going to have. And digitalization of agriculture is going to be 10 times more efficient as an investment as compared to anything else. And apart from that, the government is also in the rural areas also trying to build these other things in terms of your PM Sadak Yojana and then other developmental schemes. But this is the main thing that concerns us. Then comes a very very important article which talks about India's manufacturing stagnancy. Now, I've been telling you time and again that India's share in of manufacturing in its GDP is around 14%. We had targeted under our manufacturing scheme. We had targeted Make in India. We had targeted around 25% of manufacturing as a part of our GDP by 2022. In fact, it has reduced. It was 17% when we had taken that initiative, and it has reduced to 14%. And what has happened is that we have moved towards more of high skilled jobs rather than low skilled jobs, because of the fact that in fact after the closure of these or after the decline of this BPO industry that is there, a number of companies in multilateral number of multilateral institutions, as well as these these MNCs, multinational companies, have set up global capacity centers. Now, what are these global capacity centers? Basically, data analytics firms and analysis and the basically they analyze data and interpret data. So all these areas which require qualified IT engineers, which require data analysts, data scientists, so all these companies are setting up their base in India, because we have a huge we have this huge workforce which is IT based. So this is what is happening. But at the same point of time, the manufacturing weaknesses have caused us to fall behind Bangladesh in textiles, Thailand in machinery, and Vietnam in electronics. So this space which was basically vacated by China between 2015 and 2022 has not been taken up by us, has been taken up by these countries. And the economic survey basically also tells us that we need around 8 million jobs, 80 lakh jobs annually in the non-farm sector to basically absorb our growing workforce. But we have not been able to do that, and therefore our unemployment rate is quite high at around 9% according to CMI. Now, and this is also seen because of the fact that if you see the direct jobs, which are direct and indirect jobs, because of India's manufacturing, this has continuously reduced. So India's manufacturing in terms of low skill, if you see, as a percentage, is going down, and direct and indirect employment, export related employment, both are going down. So directly export linked employment is going down, and indirect export linked employment is going down. But only what is happening is that services exports is increasing, and services we are doing well. So while India's services export 4.3% of world commercial services exports, India's goods barely account for 1.8% of global goods. So which basically says that that we are not doing well in this in manufacturing sector, and the area where we can absorb a lot of labor. And this is despite the fact that India we know about this, and because of that India has already approved a number of schemes. For example, you have this PM Mitra Parks, so you should be aware about what PM Mitra Parks are. PM Mega Integrated Textile Region and Apparel. And then we also have this National Industrial Corridor Development Program, where we are making these in the 12 industrial corridors. If you remember, we had talked about this, one of these corridors in Gaya, during the budget as well. Now, what we are having is that our global capacity centers, we are adding to it, but at the same point of time, even these global capacity centers, the number of jobs are actually declining because of the coming of AI. And therefore we have seen workforce reduce in 2024 as compared to 23 because of the impact of AI. And the last issue is that declining participation in global value chains. One of the major factors why we have not been able to produce a lot of these commodities is because of the fact that we have been shut out of this global value chains, because our tariff rates have been very high. In fact, from 13% average tariff rate, we have increased our average tariff rate to 18%, and we need to sign these FTAs and multilateral trade agreements so that we can be part of this global value chains. So this is something that you need to read. And the other article that you might read is GST Council forms Joemfu reviewed rate on tax rate on health life insurance. This is right now 18%, and the GST Council is basically planning to reduce it to 5%. So this is another thing that you can read. Now let's come to the other article, which is the explained page. Why commons matter now, and how community is key to their well-being. Now this is an important topic in economics, and for others as well. You should know what commons are. Now commons basically are those resources which are not owned by any individual group or government, so they are shared, and they're shared by the community as a common entity. Now these can be local as well. For example, forests, ponds, grazing lands, rivers, these can be very local, in a very local setting. They can be intangible as well. For example, UNESCO has intangible commons as well. For example, folk art, dance, local customs, traditional knowledge. So these are I mean you read about intangible commons of UNESCO, you will understand it. Then you can have international commons. For example, climate, Antarctica, Arctic Ocean, global common, high seas, all of them are global commons. And then you have other commons. For example, even moon, outer space, we have agreements on outer space, and as well as common space as well. So these are global commons as well. So and you have digital commons as well. For example, open source software is a digital common. You can think of Wikipedia as a global common. So they, all of these are basically common areas. Now one of the issues with common areas is that we need to regulate it, and for regulation and governance of these commons we have international agreements. For example, we have international agreements on Arctic area, outer space, high seas, climate change. All of them we have common, we have some kind of a governance mechanism. Now the problem is that at local levels and at national levels, subnational levels, what happens is that because commons, anyone can use the common area, therefore it can lead to tragedy of commons, which basically means over exploitation of an area. Now this was basically given by an economist, Garrett Hardin, who said that the only way forward for governing a common is for market to provide some kind of solution, or government to get into that particular area. Now this was challenged by Eleanor Ostrom. Now Eleanor Ostrom basically said, and she got a Nobel Prize for this, and she said that no, you don't need the government to basically get into the area, or the markets to get in the area. You basically ask the locals, and the locals of that particular area, and people who are dependent on that particular area, communities that are dependent on that particular area, to basically regulate it. And once that is there, then automatically you don't need the government on the markets, and the best way, the most sustainable way will be community led governance. And that is how we came into the construction aspect of the Forest Rights Act of 2006, where we have said that these forest resources, common forest resources, will be managed by the forest dwelling community who live in that region, will be able to assess and then regulate all these common forest resources. Now this is one of the things which have been talked about. And there was this Delhi dialogue that happened, and which talked about that how other states should also take it up. and now we are talking about that effectively we should have a national policy for commons which can be taken up by everyone else. Then this other article which is important is this. Now we have already read about food versus fuel debate, whereby we had talked about sugarcane, maize, palm oil, soybean oil basically being diverted from production of food to ethanol or biodiesel. But at the same point of time, there is another kind of a dilemma that is coming, is food versus cars. Now this dilemma is coming because there is something called DAP. Now DAP is being used as a fertilizer, diammonium phosphate. Now diammonium phosphate is used as a fertilizer because we all of you know that we need something called as NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium apart from sulfur. This NPK is used, and within this NPK we are dependent on phosphorus and potassium for imports. Now this is majorly being produced by China and all these other countries which are mentioned here. But at the same point of time, these new EV vehicles are basically using this DAP for the production of EV batteries, and these are one of the best batteries because they are very stable. There are different kinds of batteries that can be produced. There can be lithium ion based batteries which can use iron phosphate, which can use nickel and magnesium, cobalt and aluminium, but the cheapest and the most stable is one which uses iron phosphate. So because it needs phosphate, there needs to be some kind of diversion that needs to happen, and this is one of the major things that might happen in future, that a lot of DAP might go into the production of EV vehicles and EV things, rather than going into the production production of food. Therefore, just a second, folks. Wait a second. And finally, there's some kind of positivity, because what has happened is India has moved from direct DAP sales to something called as your combined and mixed fertilizers, where the amount of DAP that is going to be used is going to be less, and therefore this is some encouraging signs. But at the same point of time, we need to secure our long-term supplies of raw material through joint ventures, buyback mechanisms, and set up these manufacturing phosphorus acid plants. So read about this. This is an important news for from the point of view of both science and tech, because of lithium batteries, as well as from agricultural point of view. Behind Typhoon Yagi, now you should be aware of what white tropical cyclones are there. So you must be aware that it's basically a low it's a very low pressure system surrounded by very high pressure winds. So this low pressure system basically sucks all the winds from different areas, and because it is at low pressure, what happens is there's a very fast speed updraft that happens, and this warm air rises very fast and cools down and forms clouds and thunderstorms. And because of this intensive tropical depressions, the system develops, and once the speed of the winds reaches a higher stage, we give different kind of notifications to these wind systems. So a tropical cyclone can start from this Sareff-Simpson hurricane wind scale. It can be categorized from category 1 to category 5. Category 1 starts from 119 kmph to category 5, which have more than 250 kmph. And these are typically made near, if you see, you will always see all these cyclones and all these hurricanes and typhoons. By the way, you should know that why are their names very different from each particular area. And they're always formed in continental seas. For example, Gulf of Mexico or Bay of Bengal or South China Sea, and they are near equator, not exactly at equator, near equator, around 8 to 15 degrees around equator. They are formed, and it is always formed because of something called as ICTZ. So read about why ITCZ, what is the role of ITCZ, what is this, the heating of this continental seas that happened, why the temperature of 28 degrees is needed, and then the cyclones are developed. So read about all of this, and with this, our newspaper of the day is over. So I will now meet you tomorrow, folks, and if the newspaper of tomorrow is released on time, then I will do tomorrow's newspaper. Otherwise, I'll do today's newspaper just in case it's late. So with this, thank you very much. I will see you tomorrow, guys. Bye bye.